I never thought I'd see her again. 6 weeks after my divorce from Jessica was finalized, I was still a mess. Every morning I woke up in my empty apartment and remembered all over again that my wife had been cheating on me with her personal trainer for 8 months. 8 months of lies while I worked late hours at the firm, thinking I was building our future. The betrayal hurt worse than the actual end of the marriage. My buddy Kevin wouldn't stop calling. He'd leave messages every other day telling me I needed to get out of town, clear my head, stop living like a hermit. I ignored him for weeks until he showed up at my door with a printed reservation confirmation. "You're going to the Pinecrest Resort in the mountains," he said, shoving the paper into my hands. "Non-refundable. I already paid. You leave tomorrow." So I went. Not because I wanted to heal or find myself or any of that stuff people say you're supposed to do after a divorce. I went because Kevin spent money on it and I didn't have the energy to argue anymore. The resort was beautiful in that way expensive places always are. Everything looked perfect and planned, from the stone walkways to the flower beds that probably cost more to maintain than my monthly rent. I checked into my room, unpacked my bag, and immediately felt stupid for being there. What was I supposed to do? Hike alone? Sit at the spa? Pretend I was someone who took relaxing vacations? On the second morning, I forced myself to go down to the pool area. It was early, maybe 7 or 8, and hardly anyone was around. I grabbed a lounge chair near the infinity edge where the water seemed to pour right off into the mountain valley below. The view was incredible, all green peaks and morning mist, but I couldn't really appreciate it. My brain kept replaying the moment I'd found those text messages on Jessica's phone. That's when I noticed her. She was standing at the shallow end of the pool, completely still. Most people at pools are moving around, swimming or adjusting their towels or checking their phones. She wasn't doing any of that. She just stood there in a dark blue one-piece swimsuit, her auburn hair cut short and neat, looking out at the mountains like she was having a private conversation with them. There was something about the way she held herself. Confident but not showy, peaceful but not empty, like she'd found some kind of answer I didn't even know the question to yet. I probably stared for too long because eventually she turned her head and caught me looking. Our eyes met across the pool deck. I should have glanced away, pretended I was checking the time or studying the landscape. Instead, I just sat there like an idiot. She walked toward me, actually walked right over to where I was sitting. Up close, she was even more striking. She had these sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to see more than most people bothered to look for. There were small lines around her eyes and mouth that suggested she was probably in her mid-40s. But she moved with an easy grace that made age feel irrelevant. "Enjoying the view?" she asked. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it, like she was testing me to see what kind of person I was. Could have lied. Could have said something safe about the mountains or the resort facilities. But something about her directness made me want to be honest. "More than I expected to," I said. She smiled, and it transformed her whole face. "I'm Diane." "Tom," I said, shaking her hand. Her grip was firm and warm. She sat down in the chair next to mine without asking if it was okay, which somehow felt right. "First time here?" she asked. "Yeah. Friend forced me to come. Said I needed to get away." "From what?" The question was direct but not pushy, like she genuinely wanted to know but wouldn't judge whatever answer I gave. "Divorce," I said. "Recent. Not handling it great." She nodded slowly. "I understand that feeling. I'm here alone too, taking some time to figure out who I am without someone else's voice in my head telling me who I should be." We talked for almost an hour. She told me she'd been coming to this resort for years, that it was her place to think and breathe. I told her about my job in finance, about how work used to feel important but now just felt like a way to pass time. She didn't offer advice or try to fix anything. She just listened like my words actually mattered. When she finally stood to leave, she said, "I'm usually on the terrace around sunset, if you want company." That evening I found myself walking to the terrace even though I'd planned to hide in my room. Diane was already there, leaning against the railing with a glass of wine, watching the sun turn the sky orange and pink. She saw me and raised her glass slightly in greeting. I grabbed a beer from the bar and joined her. We didn't talk much. just stood there watching the light change and the shadows stretch across the valley. It should have been awkward, two strangers standing in silence, but it wasn't. It felt comfortable in a way I hadn't experienced in months. "Thank you," I said eventually. "For what?" "For not asking if I'm okay. Everyone keeps asking that, and I have to lie and say yes. You just let me exist." She turned to look at me. People think they're helping when they ask that question. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is just stand next to someone and not require them to be anything. The next morning I went down to breakfast early, hoping I might see her again. She was sitting alone at a corner table with coffee and a book. When she saw me, she waved me over. We ordered food and talked about nothing important. She asked about my favorite movies. I asked about her book. She told me about a trip she'd taken to Portugal last year. I told her about the worst vacation Jessica and I had ever taken, to a beach resort where it rained for 6 straight days. Halfway through breakfast, she mentioned her daughter. "She got married last year," Diane said. "Beautiful wedding at a vineyard upstate." Something about the way she said it triggered a memory. I looked at her face more carefully, the shape of her eyes, the way she tilted her head when she smiled. And then it hit me like ice water. Jessica's wedding photos. The rehearsal dinner shots I'd deleted from my phone but could still picture perfectly. The mother of the bride in an elegant navy dress, standing slightly apart from everyone else with that same quiet grace. This was Diane Montgomery, my ex-wife's mother. I must have gone pale because she leaned forward. "Are you all right?" I opened my mouth but nothing came out. What were the odds? What were the actual statistical odds that I'd run into my ex-wife's mother at a resort 6 hours from home? "Tom," I had to tell her. This was crazy. This was the kind of coincidence that only happened in bad movies. But looking at her concerned face, I realized something. She didn't know who I was. Jessica and I had only been married 2 years, and Diane hadn't been at the wedding. Jessica had mentioned something about her mother being overseas for work, missing the whole thing. We'd never met. "I'm fine," I managed. "Just remembered something I forgot to do at work." She didn't look convinced but didn't push. We finished breakfast making small talk about the weather and the resort's hiking trails. When we parted ways in the lobby, she touched my arm briefly. "I'll probably be at the pool this afternoon if you want to escape your work thoughts." I went back to my room and sat on the bed, mind racing. I should tell her. Obviously, I should tell her who I was. But what would I even say? "Hi, I'm your daughter's ex-husband, the one she cheated on. Nice to meet you." And there was another problem. A bigger problem I didn't want to admit even to myself. I liked Diane. Really liked her. In 2 conversations, she'd made me feel more seen and understood than Jessica had in 2 years of marriage. She was smart and funny and had this way of looking at the world that made sense to me. But she was my ex-wife's mother. That made this whole thing impossible before it could even start. I spent the rest of the morning telling myself I should check out early, drive home, pretend this never happened. But when afternoon came, I found myself walking down to the pool anyway. Diane was there, reading in the shade of a large umbrella. She looked up when I approached and smiled, that genuine smile that did something strange to my chest. "Thought you might hide in your room all day," she said. "Thought about it. But hiding gets boring." She laughed and gestured to the empty chair next to hers. I sat down, knowing I was making a mistake, knowing this couldn't go anywhere, knowing I should tell her the truth. But not yet. Not when she was looking at me like I was someone worth knowing. Not when being around her was the first time I'd felt remotely okay since my marriage fell apart. Just a few more hours, I told myself. Then I'd tell her everything. 3 days passed and I still hadn't told her. Every morning I woke up planning to come clean, and every time I saw Diane, the words died in my throat. We'd fallen into this easy rhythm that felt too good to destroy. Morning hikes on the resort trails where she'd point out birds and plants she knew by name. Afternoon wine tastings at the resort's vineyard where we'd laugh at the pretentious descriptions on the tasting cards. Long dinners at the Mountain View restaurant where conversations would stretch for hours without ever feeling forced. She told me more about her marriage. Her ex-husband Gerald was some big executive at a pharmaceutical company, the kind of man who measured his worth by his salary and expected everyone else to do the same. For 20 years, he'd slowly picked apart her confidence, criticized her clothes, her hobbies, her opinions, made her feel like she was failing at being a wife even though she'd organized his entire life, raised their daughter mostly alone, and gave up her own career in marketing to support his. He had this way of making everything sound like helpful advice, she said one evening as we walked through the resort gardens. Like when he'd say I should dress more professionally for company events, or that maybe I should try harder to connect with the other wives, or that my laugh was too loud. He'd always say it with this concerned face, like he was doing me a favor by pointing out my flaws. That's not advice, I said. That's control. She stopped walking and looked at me. Took me 15 years to realize that. What made you finally see it? He left me for someone at his office. Rachel. She's 31. Handles his travel arrangements. Laughs at all his jokes. Diane's voice was flat, like she'd told this story enough times that it had lost its power to hurt. He came home one Tuesday and told me he needed someone who made him feel alive. Said I'd become boring and predictable. That I wasn't the woman he married anymore. He's an idiot. She smiled sadly. Maybe, but I believed him. For 2 years after he left, I believed every word. Stopped wearing anything colorful because he always said I dressed too young for my age. Stopped going out with friends because I thought they were just being nice by including me. Stopped looking in mirrors because all I could see was boring, predictable, not enough. We sat down on a bench overlooking a small pond. What changed? I asked. I woke up one morning about 3 months ago and realized I was living like I was already dead. Going through motions, taking up as little space as possible, apologizing for existing. And I thought about my grandmother, who lived to 94 and dyed her hair purple when she turned 80 because she felt like it. She used to tell me that the worst thing a woman can do is make herself smaller to make a man feel bigger. Diane turned to me. So I booked this trip. First vacation alone in my entire adult life. Decided I was going to figure out who I am when nobody else is watching. I think you're doing a pretty good job. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you're smart and funny and you see things other people miss. I know you make me want to talk about real things instead of just filling silence with noise. I know that in 3 days, you've made me feel more like myself than I have in months. She stared at me for a long moment, and I saw something shift in her expression. Tom, I need to tell you something. I'm 46. You're what, early 30s? 33. That's 13 years. That's a lot. So I've been married and divorced. I have a grown daughter. I have stretch marks and gray hair I dye auburn and knees that hurt when it rains. You're young and successful and probably have women your own age interested in you. I took her hand. I don't care about any of that. Age is just a number. And for what it's worth, I think you're beautiful. Her breath caught. Don't say things you don't mean. I never say things I don't mean. We sat there holding hands while the sun dropped behind the mountains. I knew I should tell her about Jessica. Knew this moment of honesty was the perfect opening. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't risk seeing that warmth in her eyes turn to shock and disgust. The next day we drove into the nearby town for lunch. A little cafe with outdoor seating and the best sandwiches I'd ever tasted. Diane ordered wine and we spent 2 hours people watching and making up stories about the other customers. That couple over there, she said, nodding toward 2 teenagers sharing a milkshake. First date. He's terrified. She thinks it's sweet. And that guy, I pointed to an old man reading a newspaper. Retired teacher. Comes here every Wednesday. Orders the same thing every time. Everyone knows his name. We were laughing when her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her whole body tensed. Everything okay? I asked. Just my daughter. She wants to know where I am. Why I'm not answering her calls. Diane put the phone down without responding. She does this. Checks up on me like I'm a child who can't be trusted alone. Maybe she's just worried about you. Maybe she's like her father and thinks I need managing. There was an edge to Diane's voice I hadn't heard before. Sorry. That's not fair. Jessica means well. She just has a hard time accepting that I might want a life that doesn't revolve around being her mother. My stomach dropped. Of course she'd said Jessica's name before. Her daughter who got married last year. But hearing it now, in this context, made everything feel 10 times worse. You look pale again, Diane said. Are you sure you're feeling all right? Fine. Just need some water. But I wasn't fine. Jessica was probably calling her mother to complain about me, about the divorce, about how I'd apparently blindsided her by being upset about the affair. And here I was, sitting across from Diane, holding her hand, developing real feelings for her. This was wrong. This was so incredibly wrong. That night we had dinner at the resort's upscale restaurant. Diane wore a simple green dress that made her eyes look even brighter. I changed into the one button-down shirt I'd packed, and she'd laughed when she saw it. Look at us, she said, acting like adults. Over appetizers, she asked about my marriage. You don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but you've listened to me dump all my Gerald stories. Fair is fair. So I told her about meeting Jessica at a friend's party, about the whirlwind romance that felt exciting at first but maybe was just intensity mistaken for connection, about the wedding that her family paid for because we were young and broke, about the 2 years that followed where I worked constantly and she joined a new gym and we slowly became strangers who shared an apartment. When did you find out? Diane asked quietly. 2 months ago. Saw texts on her phone. She didn't even try to hide it very well. I think part of her wanted me to find out, so she wouldn't have to be the one to end things. I'm sorry. Betrayal like that changes you. Does it get better? She considered the question. It gets different. You stop thinking about it every minute. Start remembering you're a whole person who existed before them and will exist after them. But yeah, it changes you. Makes you more careful. More guarded. You don't seem guarded. I'm better at faking it than I used to be. She reached across the table and took my hand. But with you, I don't feel like I have to fake anything. That scares me and thrills me in equal measure. After dinner, we walked through the resort gardens. The paths were lit with small lanterns that cast everything in a warm glow. We walked slowly, shoulders brushing, hands almost but not quite touching. Tom, she said suddenly, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. My heart rate spiked. This was it. She'd figured it out somehow. Okay. This thing between us. Whatever it is. Are you feeling it too? Or am I making this up in my head? Relief and guilt washed over me in equal waves. I'm feeling it. Because I haven't felt this way about anyone in years. Maybe ever. And that terrifies me because I barely know you and you're so much younger and this should feel wrong, but it doesn't. It feels right in a way I can't explain. We'd stopped walking. We were standing on a bridge over a small creek, close enough that I could smell her perfume. What if we just see where this goes? I said. No pressure. No expectations. Just two people who enjoy each other's company. And when you go home, when this week ends, we figure it out. Exchange numbers. Visit each other. Whatever makes sense. She looked up at me, and in the lantern light her eyes were shining. I want to kiss you, she said. Every rational part of my brain screamed that this was a terrible idea. That I should tell her the truth right now, before this went any further. That kissing my ex-wife's mother was possibly the worst decision I could make. But standing there with her looking at me like I was someone worth taking a risk for, I couldn't think of a single good reason to say no. So I kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her space to change her mind. But she didn't pull away. She pressed closer, her hands coming up to rest on my chest, and kissed me back with an urgency that matched my own. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she pressed her forehead against mine. This is crazy, she whispered. Completely. I don't do things like this. I don't kiss men I barely know on bridges in resort gardens. Good thing I'm not just some man you barely know. She laughed, and the sound was pure joy. No, you're really not. We walked back to the main building hand in hand. At the elevator, she turned to me. Come upstairs with me. I'm not ready for tonight to end. So I followed her to her suite, which was twice the size of my room and had a balcony overlooking the valley. We sat out there with wine she'd ordered from room service, talking about everything and nothing until the sky started to lighten with dawn. I should go, I said, even though I didn't want to. Or you could stay, Diane. Just to sleep. I'm not suggesting anything else. I just don't want to be alone right now. So I stayed. We lay down on top of her bed, fully clothed, and she curled against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her and felt her breathing slow and deepen as she fell asleep. I stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I had to tell her. Tomorrow. First thing. No more excuses. But as I felt her shift closer in her sleep, making a small contented sound, I knew tomorrow's confession was going to destroy something that felt more real than anything I'd experienced in years. My phone woke me up at 6 in the morning. Diane was still asleep beside me, her breathing soft and even. I carefully slid out of bed and grabbed my phone from the nightstand. 12 missed calls from Kevin. 3 voicemails. My stomach twisted as I stepped onto the balcony and listened to the first message. Tom, buddy, I need you to call me back immediately. Jessica knows you're at Pinecrest. She's on her way there. Something about a spa weekend she booked months ago. Call me back. The second message was more urgent. Tom, seriously, pick up. She left 2 hours ago. She'll be there by noon. You need to figure this out before she sees you. The third message was just Kevin swearing for 30 seconds straight. I checked the time. 7:15. If Jessica left at 4 in the morning, she'd be here in less than 2 hours. My hands started shaking. I should have told Diane yesterday. Should have told her the first day. Now Jessica was going to show up and destroy everything before I could explain. I went back inside. Diane was awake, stretching, smiling when she saw me. Good morning, she said, her voice still sleepy. Did you sleep okay? Diane, I need to tell you something. Her smile faded. That sounds serious. It is. I should have told you days ago. But I was scared and stupid, and now it's going to come out the worst possible way. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart pounding. Your daughter Jessica. She's my ex-wife. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Diane stared at me, her face going completely blank. What? Jessica Montgomery. We were married for 2 years. Got divorced 6 weeks ago. When you said your daughter got married last year, I realized who you were. But you'd never met me because you were overseas during the wedding and I was too much of a coward to say anything. She stood up, backing away from the bed like I might be contagious. You're Tom Parker. Jessica's Tom. Yes. You've known this whole time. Since breakfast that first morning. Yes. Her face shifted from shock to something harder. And you didn't think that was important information to share? You just let me talk about my life, my divorce. Let me tell you private things. Let me kiss you, while knowing you were married to my daughter. I know how it sounds. Do you? Her voice was rising. Because it sounds like you saw an opportunity to mess with your ex-wife by sleeping with her mother. It sounds like some twisted revenge plot. That's not what this is. I didn't plan any of this. Running into you was pure coincidence. But you kept it a secret. For days. While we got closer. While I started to trust you. While I started to feel things I haven't felt in years. She grabbed her robe from a chair and wrapped it around herself like armor. Did you laugh about it? Think about how you'd tell your friends you hooked up with Jessica's mom. No. God, no. I didn't tell you because I was falling for you and I knew the truth would ruin everything. Well, congratulations. It did. She walked to the door and opened it. Get out. Diane. Please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You lied to me. Not once, but repeatedly, every day we spent together. Every conversation we had was built on a lie. My feelings weren't a lie. Everything I said about how you make me feel, about wanting to see where this goes, that was all real. I don't believe you. Can't believe you. How could I ever trust anything you say after this? Tears were streaming down her face now. I thought you were different. I thought you actually saw me as a person, not as someone's mother or someone's ex-wife. But you were just using me. I wasn't using you. I swear I wasn't. A knock on the door made us both freeze. A voice called out from the hallway. Mom? Are you in there? The front desk said this was your room. Jessica. Diane's eyes went wide with panic. She looked at me, then at the door, then back at me. Hide. What? The bathroom. Now, I can't deal with both of you at the same time. I wanted to argue, to say we should just tell her together and get it over with, but the terror in Diane's eyes stopped me. I grabbed my shoes and practically ran to the bathroom, closing the door just as Diane opened the suite door. Jessica. Sweetheart. What are you doing here? I had a spa weekend booked. Remember? I told you about it last month. Jessica's voice sounded exactly the same as I remembered. Confident and slightly annoyed. Why are you acting weird? I'm not. Just surprised to see you. I thought you were coming next weekend. That's next month, Mom. Are you feeling okay? Through the crack in the bathroom door, I could see them in the reflection of the bedroom mirror. Jessica looked the same. Blonde hair pulled back, yoga pants, designer bag on her shoulder. She was looking around the suite suspiciously. Were you sleeping? Jessica asked. It's almost 9. I was up late reading. Your bed looks like 2 people slept in it. My heart stopped. I'd been lying on the left side. The pillows were clearly disturbed on both sides. I move around a lot when I sleep, Diane said quickly. You know that. Jessica walked further into the suite. She was looking at the balcony now, where 2 wine glasses still sat on the small table. Mom, is someone here? No. Then why are there 2 glasses? I used one last night and one this morning. Different wines. Jessica turned to face her mother directly. You're lying. You're terrible at lying. You always have been. Who's here? Nobody. Mom. I can see a men's watch on the nightstand, and those are definitely men's shoes by the bed. Jessica's voice was getting louder. Are you seeing someone? Is that why you've been dodging my calls? It's complicated. What's complicated? You're dating someone. That's fine. That's good, actually. Why are you being so weird about it? Diane didn't answer. She just stood there looking miserable, and I knew she was deciding whether to tell the truth or keep lying. Jessica made the decision for her. She walked straight to the bathroom and yanked open the door. We stared at each other. Her face went from confusion to recognition to absolute horror in about 3 seconds. Tom, she said, her voice barely a whisper. What the hell are you doing here? I stepped out of the bathroom because hiding seemed pointless now. Jessica, I can explain. You're here with my mother? You're sleeping with my mother. Her voice was climbing toward a shriek. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Please, explain to me what possible innocent explanation there is for my ex-husband hiding in my mother's bathroom at a romantic resort. Diane stepped between us. Jessica, calm down. Let's talk about this rationally. Rationally? There's nothing rational about this. This is sick. This is twisted. How long has this been going on? Were you seeing him while we were still married? No, I said firmly. I met your mother 4 days ago. I had no idea she'd be here. I didn't even recognize her at first because we've never met. Because you were too busy working to come to any family events. Too busy to meet my mother, but not too busy to sleep with her. We're not sleeping together, Diane said. Not the way you're thinking. We're just getting to know each other. Jessica laughed, but it sounded hysterical. Getting to know each other? Mom, he's my ex-husband. My ex-husband who I divorced 2 months ago. And you're what, dating him now? I didn't know who he was when we met. And by the time I found out, it was too late. I already cared about him. You found out? Jessica's eyes narrowed. When did you find out? The silence that followed was damning. He just told me this morning, Diane admitted quietly. This morning? So you've been lying to Mom too? Jessica turned on me. You're unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. I was trying to find the right time to tell her. There is no right time because this whole thing is wrong. You're using my mother to get back at me for the divorce. That's not true. Isn't it? This is just your petty nature on a bigger scale. Jessica, that's not fair, Diane said. Not fair? You're defending him? Mom, he lied to you. He knew exactly who you were and he pursued you anyway. Can't you see what he's doing? I see two people who connected despite impossible circumstances, Diane said, but her voice sounded uncertain now. Jessica pulled out her phone. I'm calling Dad. He needs to know about this. Don't you dare, Diane said sharply. Your father has no say in my life anymore. He'll want to know his ex-wife is making a fool of herself with someone young enough to be her son. I'm 33, I said. That's not young enough to be her son. Stay out of this, Jessica snapped. Then to her mother, how could you do this? How could you betray me like this? Betray you? Jessica, my dating life has nothing to do with you. Nothing to do with me? He's my ex-husband. And you cheated on him with your personal trainer. You lost the right to have opinions about his personal life when you destroyed your marriage. Jessica's face went red. So this is revenge? You're doing this to punish me? I'm doing this because I like him. Because for the first time in 2 years, I feel like someone actually sees me as a person. He doesn't see you as a person. He sees you as a way to hurt me. I'd had enough. Jessica, believe it or not, the world doesn't revolve around you. I didn't come here looking for your mother. I didn't plan any of this. But I'm not going to apologize for caring about someone just because you can't handle it. Caring about her? You've known her for 4 days. Sometimes 4 days is enough. Jessica looked between us, her expression shifting from anger to something uglier. Disgust. You two deserve each other. Both of you are pathetic. Mom, you're so desperate for attention you'll take it from anyone, even your daughter's leftovers. And Tom, you're so bitter about the divorce you'll stoop to anything. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. The silence she left behind was suffocating. Diane sat down on the bed, her face in her hands. I wanted to go to her, to comfort her, but I didn't know if she'd want me to touch her. You should go, she said quietly without looking up. Diane, please, just go. I need to think. We can figure this out. How? She looked up at me, and her eyes were devastated. My daughter hates me now. She's going to tell everyone, make this into some scandal. And you lied to me, Tom. I understand why, but you still lied. How am I supposed to trust you after that? I know I messed up, but my feelings are real. What we have is real. Is it? Or are we just two broken people who latched onto each other because we were lonely? You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. She stood up and walked to the door, opening it. Please leave. I can't do this right now. So I left. I grabbed my things and walked out of her suite, down the elevator, through the lobby where people stared at me like they somehow knew. I packed my bags, checked out, and drove away from Pinecrest Resort with my hands shaking on the steering wheel. 3 weeks passed like wading through mud. Every day felt exactly the same. Wake up, go to work, pretend to care about spreadsheets and client meetings. Come home, stare at my phone. Don't call Diane. Fall asleep thinking about her. Repeat. Kevin came over twice. The first time he brought pizza and beer and sat on my couch while I explained everything. So let me get this straight, he said. You fell for your ex-wife's mom. Didn't tell her who you were. Got caught by your ex-wife. And now you're sitting here feeling sorry for yourself? That about covers it. And you haven't tried to contact Diane at all? She told me to leave. She needs space. She said that 3 weeks ago, buddy. People say things when they're upset that they don't mean forever. You didn't see her face. She was destroyed. Kevin ate another slice of pizza. You know what your problem is? You give up too easy. Jessica cheated on you and you just accepted the divorce. Diane pushed you away and you just left. You never fight for anything. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time you actually fought for something you wanted? I didn't have an answer. The second time Kevin came over, he didn't bring food. He brought news. Jessica posted about you and Diane on social media, he said, showing me his phone. The post was long and dramatic. Jessica had written about betrayal and family loyalty and how some people have no boundaries. She'd painted me as a predator and Diane as a woman having a midlife crisis. The comments were brutal. "This is bad," I said. "Actually, it's not." Kevin scrolled down. "Look at the responses." People were tearing Jessica apart. They were bringing up her affair, pointing out her hypocrisy, calling her immature and selfish. Someone had even found old posts where she'd complained about her mother being too controlling, and now she was acting like they were best friends. "The internet doesn't always get it right," Kevin said. "But they got this one. Public opinion is on your side." "I don't care about public opinion. I care about Diane." "Then do something about it." "Like what?" "Like fight for her. Like show up and prove you're not going anywhere. Like be the kind of man who doesn't run when things get hard." That night, I lay in bed thinking about everything. About Diane standing by the pool looking peaceful and strong. About the way she'd looked at me like I mattered. About how I'd felt more alive in 4 days with her than I had in 2 years with Jessica. I thought about what Kevin said. That I never fought for anything. That I always took the easy way out. He was right. I got up, grabbed my laptop, and looked up Diane's address. It wasn't hard to find. She lived in a beach town about 6 hours north, in a cottage she'd bought after the divorce. I looked at pictures of it online. Blue shutters, a front porch with flowers, a backyard that led right to the sand. I called in sick to work the next morning. Threw some clothes in a bag. Got in my car and drove. 6 hours gave me plenty of time to rehearse what I'd say, to plan out the perfect speech. But when I finally pulled up to her cottage and saw her sitting on the back deck looking out at the ocean, every planned word disappeared from my brain. She saw my car in the driveway, saw me walking around the side of the house. Her expression didn't change. She just watched me approach like she'd been expecting this. I climbed the steps to her deck. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her auburn hair slightly messy from the wind. She looked tired, beautiful and tired. "I told you to leave," she said quietly. "You did, and I did. But now I'm back." I sat in the chair next to hers without asking permission. "Because you're worth fighting for." "Tom, don't." "No, you need to hear this. I messed up. I should have told you who I was from the beginning. I was scared and selfish and I made the wrong choice. I'm sorry for that. Truly sorry. But I'm not sorry for caring about you. I'm not sorry for every conversation we had or every moment we spent together. Those were real. How can I know that? How can I trust anything about this? Because I'm here. Because I drove 6 hours to sit on your deck and tell you that these past 3 weeks have been miserable. Because you make me feel like myself again, like the person I was before marriage and divorce and all the mess that comes with it. You see me, Diane. Really see me. And I see you. Not as Jessica's mother or Gerald's ex-wife. Just as you. She was crying now. My daughter hates me. She's telling everyone I'm having a midlife crisis. That I'm pathetic. Have you seen what people are actually saying? They're on your side. They're calling her out for being a hypocrite. I don't care what strangers think. I care that I've lost my daughter. You haven't lost her. She's angry and she'll stay angry for a while, but she'll come around. Jessica's a lot of things, but she's not stupid. Eventually she'll realize that your happiness doesn't take anything away from her. Diane wiped her eyes. What if she doesn't? What if choosing you means losing her forever? Then that's her choice to make. You can't live your life trying to make her happy at the expense of your own happiness. That's what you did with Gerald for 20 years. Don't do it again. She stared out at the ocean. Waves crashed against the shore in a steady rhythm. A few seagulls fought over something in the sand. I'm scared, she finally said. I know. I am too. What if this doesn't work? What if we're making a huge mistake? What if we're not? What if this is exactly what both of us need? I reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. I'm not asking you to have all the answers right now. I'm just asking you to give this a real chance. Give us a real chance. She looked at our joined hands. Jessica called me last week. Said some terrible things. Then she hung up and I haven't heard from her since. She'll call again. When she's ready. You seem very sure of that. I'm not sure of anything except how I feel about you. Everything else we'll figure out as we go. Diane turned to face me fully. I missed you. These past 3 weeks. I kept thinking about things I wanted to tell you, places I wanted to show you, conversations I wanted to have. And then I'd remember why you weren't here and I'd get angry all over again. Are you still angry? A little. But mostly I'm just tired of fighting what I feel. Then stop fighting it. She squeezed my hand. If we do this, we do it right. No more secrets. No more hiding. Complete honesty even when it's hard. I can do that. And we take it slow. I need time to process everything. To figure out how to handle Jessica. To just breathe. Whatever you need. She smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Why are you so patient with me? Because you're worth it. Because what we have is worth it. She leaned over and kissed me, soft and gentle like a promise. When she pulled back, she rested her forehead against mine. Stay for dinner. We'll make something together and talk about normal things and pretend the world isn't complicated for a few hours. I'd like that. We spent the evening in her kitchen making pasta from scratch. She taught me how to roll out the dough properly. I made her laugh by getting flour in my hair. We ate on her deck as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. This reminds me of Pinecrest, she said. Our first sunset on the terrace. Best sunset I've ever seen. Me too. We talked until the stars came out. About her plans to go back to work in marketing. About my projects at the firm. About books we'd read and movies we wanted to see and all the small details that make up a life. Around midnight, she yawned. I should let you go. You have a long drive home. Actually, I was hoping I could stay. I booked a hotel in town. Don't be ridiculous. You can stay here. Guest room is all made up. But when we went inside, neither of us headed for the guest room. We ended up in her bedroom, lying on top of the covers just like we had at Pinecrest. She curled against my chest and I wrapped my arms around her. Thank you for coming back, she whispered. Thank you for letting me. We fell asleep like that. Two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their old lives, building something new together. Over the next few months, things slowly got better. I drove up to see Diane every weekend. She came down to my place twice. We talked on the phone every night, real conversations about real things. Jessica didn't call, didn't text, cut both of us off completely. It hurt Diane more than she wanted to admit, but she kept moving forward, kept choosing her own happiness. 8 months after Pinecrest, Diane and I were back at that same resort. We'd booked a long weekend, wanted to return to where everything started. We spent our days hiking and our evenings on the terrace watching sunsets. On the last night, I found her by the infinity pool. She was standing at the shallow end just like she'd been the first time I saw her. Still graceful, still at peace, but different too, lighter somehow. I walked up behind her and wrapped my arms around her waist. Enjoying the view? I said. She turned in my arms and kissed me. When she pulled back, her eyes were bright. I love you, she said. I love you too. We stood there as the sky turned dark and the stars came out. Both of us had been broken by people who didn't value us. Both of us had lost pieces of ourselves we thought we'd never get back. But standing there by the infinity pool where we first met, I understood something important. Sometimes the best things grow from the worst moments. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what you were really looking for. 2 weeks later, Jessica called her mother. The conversation was short and awkward, but it was a start. She wasn't ready to accept us yet, but she was willing to try. And that was enough. For now, it was enough. Diane and I built something real together. Something honest. Something worth every complication and every risk. A second chance. A new beginning. A love neither of us expected but both of us needed.